Hello, YouTube. This is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. How are you all this afternoon, evening, morning, whatever the hell time it is for you, wherever you are? So today I wanted to talk about a phrase that's being thrown around. I guess it's been thrown around for a long time, called ascension symptoms. And I think this is a worthwhile thing to look at. It's kind of what I wanted to talk about yesterday, but I got sidetracked. A lot of energy and emotions and feeling came up, and I kind of went off on another tangent. But ascension symptoms, you probably know what they are, but they are supposedly physical reactions to heightened energy that happens when you are ascending to the next dimensional level, I suppose. Now, up until very recently, I scoffed at ascension symptoms. A lot of the feelings that I had, I still have. Except that I think that ascension symptoms are potentially a very real thing. But the main problem with it is the main problem I have with all of the, what word do I want to use? The New Age type of spirituality. This is the sad part. See, here's the sad part for me. The sad part is that the only people who seem to have any real information having to do with higher dimensional beings, this coming shift that's happening, they tend to be the same people that I was scoffing at. And for good reason. Because unfortunately, we do live in a simulation, if you will. We live in a version of reality that is coming to an end. And unfortunately, the people who are willing to be more flexible in their interpretation of reality and who are more willing to accept other possibilities for our multiverse are the same people who conflate, who project, and who are suffering from a lot of emotional trauma. And that's one of the reasons they're so open, because they want to escape. They want to escape their pain. And so they want to believe in other realities. And so the problem with that is that the people who want to believe in other realities because they're in pain will, as I said, will conflate. It's one of my favorite words. Do you know the difference between confusion and conflation? Confusion is when you confuse one thing for another. You think a marble is a pool cue. You confuse one. They're two completely different things. Conflate is when you take things that overlap and you can't differentiate. You conflate. Let's say there's a fire. You're in a house that's on fire, and you also happen to be somewhere in the tropics where it's hot. And instead of understanding that your house is on fire, you conflate the heat, which is there. Ooh, I'm hot. That part is true. Boy, it must be a hot, sunny day outside. Well, you're conflating the heat with the fact that you're on fire. So it's a lot like confusion. So people do this with spirituality. They conflate and project. And it makes things very challenging, because I like to approach this from as much of a rational perspective as possible, because I want to know the truth. I want to know what the truth is. And it's very hard to know what the truth is when your version of reality is falling apart. And you have to find out what is the true version of reality. What is actually going on? And that becomes challenging, because then we all have emotions, and we all have needs, and we all have attachments. And so we project. For instance, to conflate, here's a good example of conflation. To take, let's say, the experiences that I've had with extra dimensional beings who also happen to be extraterrestrial. They're not from Earth. And people who have had abduction experiences, or people who have had home invasion experiences from aliens. I use the word alien meaning they're different. I don't mean extraterrestrial. So the vast majority of people, let me give you an example. You're sitting in your house, in your bed, and all of a sudden you become frozen and you can't move, and grays, these guys start coming in through the ceiling and through the walls. That is an experience that is very common that people have. And those experiences oftentimes turns into abduction experiences, where they're supposedly taken onto a ship, and much of the time they're experimented on, and they have experiences where the beings will telepathically communicate with them. And there happens to be actual extraterrestrial beings that do actually look like this. But they're also extra-dimensional beings. So if you don't know that, the experience that I just described, where you're sitting in bed and you become frozen and you can't move, and grays start to come in through the ceiling and walk in through the walls, if you don't know that that's actually done by human beings, and you hear of somebody like me who has an out-of-body experience with one of these kinds of beings in a different dimension, you could conflate the two. You could make the honest mistake that your experience sitting at home not being able to move while these grays come into your home and stand at the foot of your bed, you could conflate that with the kind of experience that I've had. And you could say, oh yeah, I've had ETs, I've experienced ETs, but the truth is that wouldn't be the case. You would have had an experience with aliens who were actually created in a lab here on Earth with technology that has not been revealed to the population of Earth, and they would have been using technology which allows a couple of things. They have the ability to put visions in your head where you think you're seeing something you're not. They use this electromagnetic, some electromagnetic device that does that. And they have these partially fleshed out androids that have AI in them that also have the ability to telepathically communicate, and they can actually be manipulated behind the scenes. Somebody you can't tell the difference, because how would you know if you've never experienced it? So it's a very easy conflation to make. And then that creates another conflation, which is that I see this all the time. I really want to get involved with CE5 groups on Facebook, but I just find the nonsense to be really difficult to get past, because among half of the truth that goes on, there's the other half of people who will say, yeah, and then there's the evil aliens like the Greys that come in, and they're at war with the good aliens, and there's just all this conflation, and it's just crazy mishmash. So that's just an example, and I'm using that as an example, but you all should know about that is a real thing. That there are these alien experiences, home invasions, abductions, and they have nothing to do with extraterrestrials. They're completely done by human beings with advanced technology, and it's psychological warfare. They're doing it to program you to be afraid of aliens, and they're doing a very good job. Because on those same forums I will hear, and even people have asked me this before, I get asked this all the time, that are these, if I do CE5, are aliens going to come into my home without my permission? Are they going to visit me without my permission? And that's an understandable fear, but no, they won't do that. The actual extraterrestrials, actual beings from other planets, it is absolutely abhorrent to them. And it is damaging to them energetically to do anything that is harmful to you. It hurts them when they do things that's hurtful to you. But this is our 3D experience, so we project it. And of course we have the actual alien abduction experience, which of course is not extraterrestrial. And so we think that's what I did. That was my only, introduction to ETs, was that. It was Whitley Strieber's books. It was the movie Communion. It was, Fire in the Sky. All of that. That's the only thing I knew about it. So, my first interactions was that. In fact, after my first successful CE5, I was saying to them, don't come into my house. I don't want you coming into my house. I don't trust you. And I didn't realize what I was talking about, that they would never have done that anyway. It's not in them to do that. So now I'm getting into what we're talking about. So what are ascension symptoms? So ascension symptoms, there's no shortage of ascension symptoms out there. And I don't talk about it because people talk about their ascension symptoms. Even the name, ascension symptoms, it has a pride attached to it. Oh, I am having this symptom because I'm ascending. It has this pseudo-spiritual pride label attached to it. And people use it to spiritualize very serious physical and psychological and emotional problems, which very well may be as a result of experiencing higher levels of energy. So there's the conflation. Just like Kundalini psychosis, people will say, I awakened my Kundalini, and then they'll begin to describe how they go through periods of feeling like I'm God, and then they'll go into periods of I get attacked by demons, and they vacillate between these two. Either they're just the ultimate victim, or they're very grandiose, and they're God and they control the world. And it's true that this can be a result of the release of Kundalini, but they conflate their craziness with spiritual advancement, and that's just not the case. They have Kundalini psychosis. Now, what has happened is that they have reacted to the Kundalini. It's just like having a bad trip. I'm pretty certain that Kundalini releases DMT in the brain. By the way, somebody came onto the channel and was very upset with me because I said that I did not believe that taking entheogens was a good way of releasing DMT, and I specifically said that I didn't think mushrooms was a good idea at all, because it's an external force, and it forces the brain to release. In fact, it forces the brain to shut down production of DMT because you're ingesting it. And then he went on to say, first, I didn't know what I was talking about. He was obviously a guy who took shrooms on a regular basis. And he associated spirituality with ingesting an external chemical. So, of course, his pride was damaged when I said that's not a good way of doing it, that you can get your brain to release DMT on its own by doing these practices. And he went on to correct me and say that that's not possible because the pineal, destroys DMT as soon as it's produced and blah. In other words, you can't do that. Your brain can't produce DMT, so therefore you have to take mushrooms in order to have that experience. And I didn't want to argue with him about it. And to be honest, I didn't even care whether he was right about that or not, until I just stumbled on an actual medical doctor who was saying that DMT is produced massively by the frontal cortex, and that DMT is one of the main, functional chemicals being a human, just consciousness. I think he was even saying consciousness itself was about the brain releasing DMT, and then went into all this about how the massive amounts of DMT that our brain already releases. So I was very happy to be vindicated that taking an external form of DMT actually works against you. It shuts down your body's ability to produce it. My personal experience is that the lightning qigong, definitely, and any massive release of Kundalini definitely is a release of DMT, without a doubt. So when you have a Kundalini experience, your brain gets flooded with DMT. In other words, you trip out. And as you know, if people who take mushrooms, they will tell you your mindset when you take it is extremely important. If you take it and you're not in a good place, if you're fearful, if you're uncomfortable, if you're anxious, paranoid, and if you take mushrooms, you're going to have a bad trip. And so this is what happens when somebody has Kundalini psychosis. Kundalini is released. The Kundalini is neutral. It's not spiritual or unspiritual. It's just an energy within the body that can be used by the individual if they have a spiritual awareness about them, if they have consciousness working for them, which is another way of saying they have, their critical thinking skills, their ego is not involved. Then they're going to have a blissful experience, and they might see God and experience God. And then they'll be able to come back down to earth and then function. But now they have this new awareness. But if somebody is emotionally immature, if they are attached, if their narcissism and their ego is out of whack because they have unresolved issues having to do with their identity, then when they have a Kundalini experience, it's just going to be the same as somebody who's bonkers and they drop acid. They're going to have a bad trip. The difference is if it's a Kundalini awakening, it's not going to go away in a few hours. It could last for days or months, could last for a long time. And so you go crazy. It's called Kundalini psychosis. It's that way for real. They also say it about chi. They call it chi sickness. So when you do something like lightning qigong, if you're not walking, spirituality again is about individuation. It's about, psychology is about being individuated. And spirituality is doing the same thing. It's trying to keep you individuated, which is another way of saying having good critical thinking skills, where you get your ego and your attachments out of the way of the information that you're receiving, so you can come to proper conclusions about yourself and about your relationship to the universe. So I do believe that now, of course, having had the experiences that I've had, I do believe, first and foremost, that our Earth has already gone through massive shifts. Some of us have a harder shell than others. My shell was very, very hard. And so I didn't feel any of this. Plus, I had done so much of this, lightning Qigong and Kundalini yoga that I might not have even noticed it anyway. I spent, decades doing that before. This was before we even went through the wormhole and came out the other side to the galaxy where we are now. So I just didn't notice it, probably. But I also had a thick, protective shell around my understanding of reality. But some people, especially if you're damaged, if you've been psychologically damaged, if you've had a challenging childhood, or if you're just a very sensitive, very artistic, very right-brained person, then this new change in energy is going to have a strong impact on you. And if you don't know what the heck's going on, it could be very challenging. And so if you, on top of that, if you already have attachments to escaping your pain, and the more that you awaken to the reality that you live in this 3D world, which is in fact a simulation, then you're only going to react even more strongly from your emotional, psychological issues, which means you're going to conflate. You're going to have an experience where you realize that reality is different than what you thought. You're going to feel stronger energetic vibrations going through you, and you're going to respond from what you have. And if what you have is a lack of individuation, if you have a fear mentality or a victim mentality, it's going to create that. In other words, even though this energy that's coming to you is designed to awaken you, if you're not evolved psychologically, mentally, spiritually, if you all those things, then you're going to have a bad trip, and you're going to conflate, and you're going to project. This is the toughest part. I have to say, the toughest part about communicating with these beings is that it's very difficult not to project. It takes everything I have in me not to project. And I do. So whenever I have an interaction with them, if I have the time, I will spend a couple of days really sitting with it and taking a look at what was my projection and what was not. There were messages that I believed I was being told some very specific things, and I went out and tested them, and they turned out not to be the case. It was my projection, my misinterpretation. They may say one thing and I'll conflate it with something else, or I'll add to it in my own mind. Or I will reject. That's a big one. I have a hard time. I push away a lot of stuff because it's just hard to. It's just so out of my understanding of everything that it's just hard to accept. So it can be really tricky. And most of the people who talk about ascension symptoms are people who aren't having the same kinds of experiences I've had. I've come to the conclusion that what's happening to me, I don't think is what happens to most people. I think that they see something in me which excites them, and so they want to communicate with me and work with me, I think, a lot more than they do the average person. And I didn't realize that. I thought everybody was having the same scenario I am, and it's just not the case. So I'm suffering my own ascension symptoms. So let's go through a list of ascension symptoms. Headaches, digestion issues, not being able to eat same kinds of foods. Like if, let's say, you eat beef. I haven't eaten beef in, I haven't eaten red meat in over 30 years. And it wasn't for religious or spiritual reasons, it's just because I couldn't digest it. My body just wouldn't digest it. And then of course I find out later that's a good thing. You shouldn't be eating that stuff anyway. But sometimes people, there's certain foods that they eat, all of a sudden they can't eat. Maybe you can't do caffeine anymore. You can't do sugar anymore. You might find yourself having sleeping problems, sleeping too much, not sleeping enough. You might have emotional issues. You might find yourself very raw. You might have real physical issues like physical pain, fibromyalgia, things like that. I had my own ascension symptom after my first successful CE5. You guys watched me go through it. It turned out I had something called frozen shoulder, which normally lasts for 2 years or more. And I was able to heal myself of it within about 3 weeks. And at that time, I thought it took too long. Like, that's too long, until I found out, no, when you have this, the actual nerve that goes to your muscles is dead. It dies. I mean, it doesn't die. I mean, it gets completely disconnected from the brain, and the brain can't communicate with the muscles. And so what normally takes 2 or 3 years for that nerve tissue to regenerate and everything else involved, I was able to do it in a few weeks, which is pretty amazing. I'm back to normal again. I'm back to 100%. And so that's an ascension symptom. Fibromyalgia, as I said, chronic fatigue. And people boast about these things. I've run into people, all over the internet. There's all over the internet, people boast about their ascension symptoms. The ringing in the ears, that for me hasn't stopped. That started from the moment I interacted with these beings, and it hasn't stopped. And I found that it gets worse when I reject the information. It gets better when I accept the information. When I drop the fear, or I drop the doubt, the confusion, and I just allow myself to go with the information that's being fed to me, even if it's absolutely outrageously beyond my comprehension of reality. The more that I allow myself to accept it and believe it, my ear opens up. Another ascension symptom is people they'll vacillate, same as Kundalini psychosis, they'll vacillate between grandiosity and victim mentality. So they'll think they're being attacked by demons. They will think themselves to be God or Jesus or things like that. And they'll vacillate between the two. In other words, narcissism. They'll have grandiose, narcissistic, paranoid delusions. These are all ascension symptoms. So, I'm here to tell you that if I hadn't, done all of the work that I've done on myself, I've been in 12-step groups for 40 years. I've been in therapy for 25 years. Of course, I've been a meditator and a spiritual practitioner for 35 years. When I had my ascension symptoms, I had a lot of tools to deal with it, and I'm still using them. I mean, my insane, crazy, what's the word I'm looking for? acid trip that I've been on for the past 4 months. It hasn't stopped. It's still continuing. The only thing that's allowing me to keep, the relative sanity that I have and overcome the negative ascension symptoms is all of that work that I've done. So all of that work that I've done is what's allowing me to have this and not get attached to it. And that's where the real problem is. You have an ascension symptom and you become attached. Either you think you spiritualize it. You say, I'm becoming more spiritual. I can see this and blah. Or you actually have a spiritual experience. Something that goes beyond your understanding. Spiritual non-physical. Paranormal is a better word because it's beyond normal. You have a paranormal experience and you spiritualize it, meaning that I'm now more spiritual. People use this word, I've been awake. As soon as I hear somebody say, I awoke 4 years ago, right? I just, everything they say after that, I discount. When I had my awakening, and then they'll go in and talk about how they have fibromyalgia and they have, chronic fatigue and they have headaches, and they think it's because they're so spiritual in their physical human body, and they're conflating. Because it's true, your 3D human body, when it runs into these higher dimensional energies, it has a difficult time absorbing that, especially if you are not able to process the psychological and emotional impact. If you can't process that, your body won't be able to process the feelings. So if you have frozen shoulder because you're having an ascension symptom, if you have fibromyalgia, if you have aches and pains, if you have chronic fatigue, if you have headaches, it doesn't mean that you're spiritual. It means that you are psychologically in conflict with the messages. So I'm also talking about what we can expect when we get to 5D. So I'm getting a pretty good feeling of what I'm going to be doing when we get there. Because when we get there, assuming that this shift happens the way we have all been intuiting that it will, assuming that's the case, there's going to be a lot of people who won't know what to do with all this energy. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be flipping out. A lot of people who are going to be afraid and confused, and they won't know what to do with this new understanding of reality. They might not, for some people, being filled with unconditional blissful love, literally DMT, just like coursing through your upper cortex here. For some people, that's going to be traumatic. So a lot of you think, once I get it, it'll bliss me out. I hope it does. Maybe it will. But for some people, it's going to be traumatic. Because there are people who can't interact with reality without bouncing off of negativity. I know, because I'm one of them. Yesterday, you saw the video I did yesterday. I was blissed out. I believe that I had a good portion of the day, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 hours of the day yesterday, I had been given a glimpse. I don't think fully, but a glimpse of here's what it's going to be like. When you're in 5D, here's what life will be like. And I was walking around on the beach here in Florida, and I was walking around, and the level of bliss that I was feeling and the level of unconditional love that I had, and there's no doubt in my mind that my brain was flooded with DMT. No two ways about it. Literally everything was brighter. It's like this, everything sparkled. And I just absolutely loved everybody. I could feel as if somebody walked by, I could feel their essence and their soul. If I looked in their eyes, I mean, if I saw, like a couple of times I saw, babies crying, and it was like I wanted to go and pick up the babies and nurture, and that's not me. I don't do that. Normally the sound of babies crying is traumatic. I can't tolerate it. So the way that I grew up, the way that I programmed myself was to bounce off of negative feelings, because that gave me a sense of safety. This is why people have victim mentality, by the way. This is why people, when they hear, for instance, when they hear about if you do CE5 successfully and you have an experience where you get to meditate with a higher dimensional being and the very powerful, spiritual, very healing experience you have, when they hear that, one of the first things people will say is, well, how can I trust them? How do I know they're not evil? Or how do I know if I do this that they're not going to then, come into my house? I mean, I had that fear too. How do I know they're not going to come into my house? This is bouncing off the negative. When I, being a tough guy, I'm not as tough as I used to be, but, the way tough guys work is when you go out in public, you throw your chin up like this, and you look at everybody down your nose, and your chin is up. If you notice, tough guys don't say, hey, hello. They go like this. They go, what's up? When they salute each other and say hello, they throw their chin out. What's up? It's a very aggressive thing. It's actually, it's a sign of, don't touch me. I'll hurt you. And it's basically two alpha males, jockeying for position. What's up? That's bouncing off the negative. And so in 5D, you won't be able to do that. So when you're thrust into that state and all the DMT is released, and as people are saying, assuming that it's true, that your DNA is switched on, and the actual spiritual energy becomes more available, they won't be able to go to that negative place. And if they try and go there, they'll cause themselves a short circuit, and it'll be very challenging, and they'll end up with headaches. I can't handle the energy. These are emotional reactions to the higher levels of energy. So as you can tell, I don't want to, and I haven't spiritualized any of my ascension symptoms. I haven't, when my shoulder went out, I was very clear that, my brain has snapped. I didn't say, I'm having an ascension symptom. I'm spiritual. I can't move my shoulder and I'm in pain. No, I was saying, no, my brain broke. I couldn't process what was happening to me. And, what was happening to me was higher levels of love, higher levels of consciousness, higher levels of acceptance and things like that, and for me, accepting love for myself, being loved by the universe, all of that, that's what I was fighting. Now, I didn't know that at the time, but my body was trying to protect me from being too vulnerable, because this is a big fear. When you're in love with somebody, you date somebody and all the oxytocin is running through your body and the DMT as well. And you're having that feeling, it's really fun until you really start to fall in love, and then you get scared. Because, you're vulnerable to being hurt. People might hurt you if you're really vulnerable and you have no defense mechanisms. So what we're entering into is this higher level of functioning is we're not going to be able to have any defense mechanisms. And so when the higher energy hits you, what your brain and your body are going to want to do is become more vulnerable and to become more loving. And here's the hardest part, becoming more trusting. If you don't trust the universe, you're going to have ascension symptoms. You're going to have ringing in the ears. I still have it. You're going to have ringing in the ears. You're going to have fibromyalgia, physical pains, headaches. You're going to be emotionally reactive. You're going to perhaps have, some psychosis where you bounce between bliss and then victim mentality and all of that. You'll have nightmares, or you'll be, blissed out all the time. This is your inability to just be in that space of being, full of love and being vulnerable. That's what this is. It's your inability to be loved by the universe, if I could put it into one sentence. Your inability to allow yourself to be loved. Especially if you're one of these people that loves to talk about, we just, the death of Queen Elizabeth, for me, I'm over it. She died, I don't know, a while ago. So not that it bothered me to begin with. I didn't know the woman. But, people just need to badmouth her and call her all kinds of horrible names. And, the need to do that to somebody that's dead is really sad. And if you can say that and think you're being spiritual at the same time is equally sad. To be talking about how spiritual you are while you literally damn some person to hell and wish that they rot in hell because they're, it's horrible. And it's a very human thing to do, but it's horrible. And to conflate the victim mentality associated with that, to conflate that with being awake. People say, I'm awake. How do I know you're awake? Well, because I hate these people and I want them to burn in hell. And not only that, I can't even see them as human. I have to see them as these dragon, alien overlords. When they might be evil, horrible people, they might be trapped in an evil, horrible system, just like the rest of us. And but they're still human beings. And so the inability to just accept everybody, again, I have no hatred towards the elite. I don't wish them any ill will. And when this higher dimensional reality hits, my honest hope for all of them is that they will be able to drop their attachments and their pain, and they'll be able to allow themselves to operate from love and do the healing. And I don't wish any negativity on them at all. And I don't see myself as being spiritual because I have that feeling. So it's hard for me to listen to somebody else who claims to be spiritual while at the same time wanting to badmouth any other human being who's obviously in pain. Because nobody causes other people pain if they themselves aren't in pain. And at the same time, nobody hates other people. If you hate the elites and you resent them and you want them to be punished and strung up alive, then you're filled with pain also. And I feel for you. But I'm not spiritual just because I see the reality that they're just like me. They might be trapped in their own pain more than I am, but they're no different than I am. And I wish the same thing for them that I wish for myself. And I'm struggling like everybody else. So I want to do what I can to help. And I'm realizing that if and when this shift happens, that's going to be my role, to be there to help people Deal with it. You think the ascension symptoms are bad now. Wait till you're in it and there's no going back. Wait till you can't go back to where you were. It's going to be a lot harder. A lot of you listening to me, I don't wish this on you, but a lot of people listening to me thinking that when the ascension hits, you're gonna have some issues. I don't know what it's going to be like for me. I had an experience of it yesterday, and I believe that was given to me. I think they said, here's a taste of what it's going to be like, and. It was blissful, but it took all of my training. It took all of the work that I've done to be able to keep myself in it and to surrender to it and all of that. The other thing that's really challenging about dealing, like if you look a higher dimensional being in the face, figuratively, I don't mean literally look them in the face. I mean, if you interact with them directly, the amount of love that they pour onto you is incomprehensible. And when they look at you, they will start, however they will communicate to you your value as a spiritual being. And it's going to be overwhelming. And it'll be very difficult not to project onto that. It'll be very difficult to know. For instance, if they come to you or you interact with them and they want to let you know how amazing and beautiful you are, they may tell you something like, you're a deity. They may compare you to a deity, and they'll be dead serious about it. But in your 3D mind, you won't be able to handle it. You will believe it in the 3D way. You will think you are this walking deity that controls the universe, and you won't understand what they were really trying to tell you. They're not. From their perspective, they're not lying. They're telling you the truth because that's the reality of all humans. All beings with souls are deities. In fact, you are an expression of a ninth dimensional deity. Whoever you are an expression of a ninth dimensional, maybe even 11th dimensional deity. And so they see that. They don't see it from a three-dimensional perspective. They see your true essence and they see your true origins. And so they'll tell you, your Jesus, your Buddha, your God, name your deity. They'll tell you that. And they'll mean it. But they say that to everybody. And they mean it, they don't mean it any less. This is the intensity of what it's like to be with these beings. And this is what it's going to be like in 5D. You'll be walking around and you'll see the divinity in everybody. You'll feel it. You'll want to walk up to everybody and say, do you realize how powerful and amazing you are? Do you realize that you are God incarnate? Do you realize you're the second coming of Jesus? You have the ability to heal and take away the shame of the world, and you'll be dead serious when you say it. To be living at that level and not have lost your mind. That's hard for us to do in 3D. So ascension symptoms are a real thing, but we still have to use our critical thinking skills, and we still have to be individuated. So individuated means that your value is not based on anything outside of you. That your value is based on the fact that you exist. and no other reason. Just that you exist. We treat our pets this way. We don't treat, it's interesting. You'll see somebody, he'll, look at people, or, let's say somebody's in a bad mood, look at people, but, once you put them next to their pet, they tell their pet, they love their pet simply because the pet exists. Doesn't have to do anything. The pet doesn't do anything, doesn't have a job. It craps everywhere, sheds everywhere. You clean up after it. And, you don't expect anything from it other than just to exist. You love it simply because it exists. And, so pets, I think, have a pretty good, they have pretty good individuation, about that. They happen to be very loving, and they want to please us, and that helps. But, so your value comes simply because you exist. And the value is that you are an infinite being of pure light and consciousness. That is the essence of you. That is your essence. And that in and of itself is the only reason that you have value, which means there's nothing you can do to increase that value. Doesn't matter what you do. You can't increase that. You can't increase infinity. And there's nothing that can decrease that. You can try, you can act destructively, you can become an elite, you can become Bill Gates and buy up all the farmland and do all the other things that he's done. But those horrible things will not take away his value. And if he right now were to drop all of it and become aware of his value, the universe wouldn't hold anything against him. He would be able to ascend as far as he wanted. There would be nothing stopping him. You might have opinions about it. He might have opinions about it. And those would be his opinions about himself would be the only things that held him down. So, I'm starting to babble, but you get it now. Ascension symptoms are not a sign of your spiritual advancement. They are a sign of you struggling against the higher energy that's coming to you, and that higher energy is telling you the only thing that gives you value is your soul, and you are loved. And if you have trust issues, if you don't trust the universe, you will have ascension symptoms. If you don't love yourself, here's the thing about individuation. Here's the conflict. It sounds easy. I say, you are completely valuable simply because you exist, and you are lovable. That sounds good on paper, but your self-directed shame, your ego, your fear, your destructiveness, your self-sabotage, those actions are actually based in trying to please your dysfunctional parents. You're trying to get your mom and your dad to love you. And you're devaluing yourself in order to get their love. Whether you project that onto God, people do this in religion all the time. Oh, Jesus, please forgive me of my sins. I'm so horrible. Or whether it's in education. I've got a doctorate in such and such from such and such university. I have value. Oh, that means that you didn't have any value before you had those degrees. I have X amount of money. Oh, you mean before you had the money, you didn't have any value? I'm a famous actor. Or, oh, you mean if you weren't famous, Tom Cruise, you wouldn't have any value in and of yourself? So all of those ways that we use to devalue ourselves, fame, fortune, money, or how spiritual I am, i.e. empath. Empath, those of you who like the idea of saying, I'm an empath, it means that your value comes from throwing your value away and trying to fix other people. And if you can't fix other people, then you have no value. Which is why you constantly chase after all of the abusive people or the broken people, and then you want to talk about what an empath you are. You want everybody to know how you throw yourself away in order to fix other people. And you're here, that means you don't love yourself. So 5D, the empaths are going to be some of the first people that don't make it. Assuming that happens. I don't believe that people aren't going to make it. I don't believe that. I believe everybody's going to make it. Some people might have more challenges than others, but let me be clear. I don't think anybody's going to be left out unless they choose to be left out. So, empaths are going to have some of the hardest time because they don't know how to be loved. They think they're loving other people with all of the healing that they're doing and all of the empathizing with people. They think that they're loving other people, when in reality what they're doing is they're trying to get their worth, and they want people to see how good I am. Look at how spiritual I am. Tell me that I have value. I'm reminded of one of the books that I read a long time ago when I was studying Taoism. There was a few books that came out about Taoist masters. I can't remember the names of them. But one of them was talking about how he was traveling around with these other Taoist ascetics. And they were traveling around, going from place to place, doing whatever they do. And he said something to the effect of, these are the most surly, cranky people I've ever come across. And so that doesn't jive with the empath vibe of the spiritual person. No, these people were cranky, they were direct, they were dismissive, a lot of things that I do. And they were extremely spiritually advanced. In other words, they didn't care what anybody thought about them. They didn't go around, pretending to always, kissing everybody's ass so that you would look spiritual. Those are the people who create cults, by the way. The cult leaders who present themselves as, they're just these shining, perfect people. Behind closed doors, they're extremely abusive if they're cult members. There are actually some people who really are just really nice. Those people do exist. Anyway, I'm talking in circles here. I'm still sort of getting over what happened to me yesterday. That was an intense experience. But I'll see if I want to take any questions. If you have a question, write the word question. And if you have any feelings, share those. And let me say, before we get into this, let me say something again. I can't stress this enough. This channel is about doing exercises. It's not about listening to me talk. This channel is about doing the energy work, the meditations, the rituals. Having a daily spiritual, energetic practice is what this channel is all about. And if you want to be able to handle the ascension symptoms, then you kickstart the process. And that's really all that energy work is. When you do Qigong, when you do the lightning Qigong, the 90-day challenge, when you do the HUUL breath, when you do the free stuff on the channel, when you do the Awakening the Immortals Qigong, you're actually kickstarting the process, and you're shifting your energy level up to a much higher level, so that when the ascension energy hits, it's not going to be as big of a shift for you. When you do the energy work, all of your attachments come up. You will have to see all of your emotional attachments. You'll have to see all of your narcissism. You'll have to see all of your self-hatred, your devaluation, how you devalue yourself in the name of spirituality. You'll have to look at all of that, because as this energy is coming into your body, it has to make room for itself. So it pushes up to your consciousness all of these unconscious defense mechanisms, because that's what they are. Defense mechanisms from living in challenging 3D. So that's what this channel is all about. And I'm going to know if you do the practices. I'm going to know within the first couple of words if you've spent any time on my channel. And I'm going to know if you're doing the practices. So don't take it personally when I point it out to you, you're not doing the work, because I'll be able to tell. So that's why it's best to always ask me a question or share a feeling, because otherwise I'm going to catch you, and you don't want me to catch you, because I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those cranky, surly spiritual practitioners who I don't care if you like me or not. I don't have, my value is not based on whether or not you like me or approve of me or subscribe to my channel or anything like that. My value as a spiritual teacher is based on one thing and one thing only, which is, what can I do to help you? And can I help you? And if I can't help you, I'm not interested in wasting my breath on you. There's plenty of places for you to go. Find somebody who can help you. All right. Let's take a look and see what we got here. Thundra says hello. You can go to her website, thundra.thunderwizard.com. Check out all the things that she has. Besides, she's a great astrologer, among other things. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. Again, you can just take a look and see all the stuff that he has there. And both of these are certified by me in the astrology that I my specific style of astrology, Vedic astrology. Amy Rose, you have to let me know what you want to do here. And then she's got Spirit Lounge. That is Grace. grace.thunderwizard.com, a rune reader and a very powerful energy healer herself. You can go check her out. Again, people, I got to be clear. Olivia Rackley, question. Olivia Rackley, you're asking me about the Maushan mantra. I'll just read it. You say, why in that video about the Maushan mantra did you alternately use the terms force and source? Is there a difference? I'm kind of confused by your question, because it's quite clear. I don't know what you're confused about. I'm not conflating source and force. I don't know why you have that feeling. I don't know why you want to do that. Bear in mind that mantra came from Cantonese. So it came from Sifu Andrew Lum, who has passed on to higher dimensions, and he was translating it in his head to my teacher, who was writing it down in English. And so I don't know what the original Cantonese was. Now, he used the word God's love. I don't like that. I don't like the connotation of that, so I changed it. I struggled with, should I use the word God? Should I use the word the One? I thought about using the word the One. I thought about using the word the Tao. The Tao is my health. I cannot be sick. I thought about all that. And after thinking about it, I said, for most people, especially most spiritually minded Westerners, the word source gives the same feeling as God, as, all of that. Now, the word force is different. It's, it's frustrating to me because it's pretty clear. He doesn't say, I am a source within a source of a supreme source. Source has a very specific meaning to it. It means the source. What I'm using when I say the word quantum conscious field, it's It's the source of consciousness that we all are connected to and we all come from, what people would call God. Now, when he says, I am a force within a force of a supreme force, he's talking about these three energy centers, and he's talking about some other things to go into some deep things. So it confuses me and frustrates me that that's not clear to you. I don't know how to make it more clear. My suggestion is to meditate on it. Meditate on the differences of the name and see if you can, integrate it. This is why it's a mantra. It's a mantra that you say over and over again, that you meditate on, and you think about these things, and then eventually your mind expands to understand all the various things associated with it. What else? All right, Ozzy Morrison, I have no interest in arguing with you. If you don't agree, let me just do you a favor. Don't waste your time on my channel. And don't waste your valuable energy attacking me, fighting me. I haven't attacked you. I don't even know you. So whatever I've said that's offended you, you're taking that on because I didn't even know you exist before you came on my channel. So I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to block you so that way you won't have the temptation to come on here and argue with me. But here's what I will suggest that you do. Since you believe that you know more than me, what I'd like for you to do is I'd like for you to go onto your channel and use that energy, and I'm being dead serious about this, use that energy to create your own teachings. Make a video about what ascension symptoms really are. Make a video about how people can ascend. Because you obviously have a strong opinion, which means that you have a passion about it. Coming back and throwing this negativity on me, all that does is that makes me feel bad. It makes you feel bad. You're trying to get me to fight with you. It doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't help. So I'm going to say goodbye to you, Ozzy Morrison. I wish you all the best. Obviously, this is the wrong channel for you. There's no shortage of channels on here that'll tell you whatever the hell you want to hear about ascension symptoms. So I allow you to go and do that. Now, for those of you watching, why did I do that? Because I'm showing you when we go into 5D, one of the things we're never going to do again is we're never going to let anybody devalue us. Ever. And Ozzy Morrison, something I said hurt his feelings, and that's too bad. But him wanting to pull me down to that, or provoke me into getting defensive or angry, is his way of not being alone. And I don't want to co-sign whatever is going on there, but I definitely do not want to encourage somebody for devaluing me. And that's a devaluation. He said some personal attacks there, which were designed to hurt me. And we can't do that. We can't do that to each other. So to the best of my knowledge, I never attack anybody personally. I might say things you don't like hearing, but again, that's just me doing my best to try and teach you, and you can go somewhere else. And I mean that. There's plenty of places for you to go. Flux pavilion. In other words, don't let anybody devalue you. And the thing to do is to just to cut them out of your life. If somebody devalues you, just cut them out of your life. Don't fight with them. Don't attack back. Don't try and get revenge. Just, move on. Just get away from the toxicity and go somewhere else. And, the people that want what you have, they'll let you know. And the people, I used to tell people years ago, the people who are my family are not the people who necessarily are of my own blood. The people who are my family are the people who've earned it, meaning they've treated me well. They've made me feel loved. Those are my family. And I believe in that, we should live life that way. Flux Pavilion question, what can we do to control our flight in a lucid dream or astral projection? Well, I don't know, because I don't know what that's like. I mean, I don't know what you're saying. You're assuming that I know what you're talking about, and I don't. Everybody is different. You know, my teacher, when I told him about CE5 and how I did it, I do it in meditation. You know, I don't do the whole big show song and dance anymore. I just close my eyes and I go into meditation, and I go outside of the Earth's atmosphere. Sometimes I don't have to do that, but sometimes I just go into meditation and they're, you know, I can find them. But I go out and I say, hey, anybody out here? But I don't have anything visual going on. I have to force myself to visualize something, but I've found I don't even have to do that. For me, I really have this Ketu thing, those of you who know Vedic astrology. My Ketu is really where my shamanic powers come from, which is a pure physical feeling. I can feel the jolt in my body when I've connected to another spiritual being. And it's the feeling that I get from them that my brain will create something. So you're assuming that I know what goes on in your mind, and I don't know what's going on in your mind. Lucid dreams, that's a whole other deal. Astral projection is not lucid dreaming. I guess they can be. So you're asking me how to control are you out of control? Do you crash into mountains? You know? Practice. How do you control anything? You know, how do you control a bicycle, a car? You practice. How do you control a surfboard? You just keep going out there and doing it. So there you go. Flux Pavilion question. What can we do to fight off lower astral entities? Flux Pavilion, now you've hurt my feelings. How often? I mean, first off, are you doing any of the exercises that I teach? Because Flux Pavilion, I'm going to make a guess. I can't tell by the name. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, don't get your feelings hurt. Flux Pavilion, you are not signed up for the 90-day challenge, are you? And especially you're not a Maoshan practitioner, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. Because when you do the lightning qigong, you are already practicing energy practices that give you the power to fight demons. Not only that, you don't have to fight them. Once you come anywhere near them, the vibration will scare them off. So why would I teach you how to fight off lower astral entities? The assumption behind that is that it's an unsafe place. Now, I know a lot of shamans teach that. You got to be careful and test the spirits. But these are obviously not demon fighters, and these are obviously people who don't have access. I mean, I don't know, but they obviously don't have access to the same. I never think about it. Never does it enter my mind that I'm going to have to fight off a negative entity. Because the energy that I practice is so high level, the vibration is so high, I never have to think about it. I'm never going to be one of those guys that goes on ghost hunting tours, because if I do, I'll scare all the ghosts away. There'll be no ghost activity when I'm around. So, you know, why would I? It kind of bothers me that you're asking that, because it's like, how long have you been on the channel? How long do I constantly say, you know, don't worry about fear. Have no fear about any of it. So again, like I said, I'm going to know if you're doing the practices or not. Now I know. So what can you do to fight off lower astral entities? Very simple. You can practice this, the Maoshan, or you can do the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That'll give you the power over any negative entity. Agent of the Universe question. Every time I do the holding the three ones, my head buzzes. Is this common? Well, why does it matter? If I say it's uncommon, what are you going to do? That's what happens to you. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is does it help you? Here's how you know if anything matters in your life. Does it help you? Does it make you happier, healthier, and more prosperous? So I'm pretty sure by doing the 3 ones, your life is getting better. What you're kind of doing right now, unless you honestly are like worried, like something's wrong, I don't think that's the case, right? What you're really kind of doing, forgive me, agent of the universe, is you're kind of wanting to strut your stuff. My head buzzes when I do it. Your head buzzes, somebody else feels bliss, somebody else has another physical experience. Don't get caught up in the physical experiences. Get caught up in the awareness that it brings you. So whether it's common or not is not as important as doing the practice. You know, some people have told me about doing the practice and they've healed themselves of physical ailments. That's the kind of stuff I want to hear, not the superficial thing of your head buzzes or, you know, something like that. It's great if you like that. That's all I care about. That's really my only question. Do you like it? And if you like it, who cares? Enjoy it. Jedi Black Knight, honest feeling, I'm getting more and more present to countless instances of shame and embarrassment, right from early childhood. I'm happy to hear that, Jedi Black Knight, because that is the only thing we have to worry about. The only thing we have to worry about is shame. That's it. Shame. Shame is the only, if we were to put a word to what evil is, it is shame. And what is shame? Self-directed negativity, self-hatred. And it's the basis of Christianity. It's the basis of Islam. It's the basis of Judaism. Shame, your sin. You know, God approves of you if you can get rid of your shame. And you know, we actually are finding out that the universe has no judgment on anybody for any reason. The only person judging you is you. And so the fact that you're becoming aware of that is awesome. Because that's, again, when we go into the higher dimension, it's going to be, you know, and the thing is, people are addicted to their shame. Again, they get their value. I mean, Christians, again, they bow to God and they carry their cross, which is shame. See what a good spiritual person I am? You see how much shame I carry with me? People think that that's going to get God's approval. So it's great that you're seeing that about yourself because yeah, I'm seeing it in me too, by the way. I mean, it's just, you know, whenever I have my interactions with higher beings and they dump is a bad word, when they give to me such overwhelming, positive, loving statements and feelings towards me, it brings up a lot of shame. It's the first thing that comes up is I don't feel worthy of it. And I feel shameful about it. And it's just simply being loved unconditionally. It's very challenging for us. And if we can get rid of the shame, first we have to acknowledge it and feel it like you're talking about. And then we can release it, you know, which means we have to drop the fear because shame and fear go together. Shame and fear, anger, these all go together. But the core of all of it is shame. The core of everything. The core, the war that's happening in wherever the hell that is, in Eastern Europe there. Shame. The elites running the world and, you know, doing all the horrible things that they're doing, it comes from shame. This is why you can't hate them. Because if you hate them, it means you have shame. Jedi Black Knight question, could suppressed shame and embarrassment cause dermatitis? Yes, we talked about this. You've asked me this numerous times before. Dermatitis is a form of tension myositis syndrome. Dermatitis is a sign that you are in conflict with yourself. It means that your soul wants you to do one thing and you're trying to please whomever, the world, your spouse, your parents, God. You're trying to be something you don't want to be and you hate yourself for it. And the thought of not being that or having that job or doing that thing is so frightening to you because you won't get the love you want to get, that comes up in your body. Dermatitis is one of them. Dermatitis, I talked, it's an ascension symptom. It's the same thing. Another word for ascension symptom is tension myositis syndrome. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Many of the things that people deal with and go to doctors for is actually tension myositis syndrome. It is, you physically manifest your internal conflict. So the answer to dermatitis, my friend, is that you're not living your truth. You're shaming yourself out of something you really want to do. And it's coming up in your body. That's my take on it. I could be wrong. That's how I see it. Let's see what else. Olivia Rackley. Olivia Rackley, that's not a question. A question is, you want to ask me something that you don't know the answer to. You've just told me what somebody else said. And now you want to know if I agree with somebody else. And what you really want to do is you want to ask me about you getting telekinesis. And I'm not interested in telekinesis. I've achieved it. There was a point, I've done it. And it's meaningless. It has no meaning. It's interesting and it's fun, but it's meaningless. So again, if you want to ask me a question about what I teach, I'd be more than happy to answer that. If you can get honest with why do you want to know telekinesis? What's the emotional connection? I want to know how I can best help you. But that question, even if I answer it, it won't help you. So forgive me, I'm not going to answer it. Joshua Tuck, honest feeling. I feel very conflicted because you said to cut out destructive people, but I can't with my son. He terrorizes me and I'm so far past my breaking point, I don't know what to do anymore. How old is your son? Are we talking about a little kid? And you're way above my pay grade. I've never had kids before. So I'm obviously not telling you to get rid of your son. If your son is terrorizing, this is challenging, Joshua. I'm going to assume you're talking about a little kid. You'll have to tell me if I'm wrong. If it's an adult that lives on his own and has his own life, or should, if it's an 18-year-old kid that should have his own life, then the kindest thing you can do for him is kick him out. Say, listen, you gotta live your own life. You're 18, you're 20, whatever. Go live your own life. We're done. Go find a job. He ends up on the street, not your problem. That's why, when I was a kid, it was so much clearer when I was a kid with most people. It's a lot different now. But, when I remember in high school, for a lot of people in high school, it was either you go to college, and if you went to college and your parents could afford it, they would contribute financially to help you go to college, to whatever extent they were capable. But if you weren't going to college, as soon as you got, your high school diploma, you were out on the street looking for a job. You were out of the house. That's it. I don't care. You're on your own. Best of luck. It was like, you did that. That was the kindest thing you could do for your kid, is to get him off in the world, get him started, go learn how to take care of yourself. And if they stayed in their parents' house, you'd be like, if you're going to live under my house, I don't care if you're an adult, you're going to follow my rules. So if you're talking about a kid that's not able to follow the rules and he's, a teenager, then yeah, you gotta figure out how to do that. But what we're really talking about here is there's some major dysfunction going on, or your kid has a real problem and needs medical attention. If we're talking about a little kid, too bad. You chose to have a kid. You don't get to, if he's a little kid, you don't get to say my kid is destructive. That's different. When I'm talking about somebody being destructive in your life, we're talking about another full-grown adult attacking you or being abusive to you. A little kid who you can't control or has behavior problems, that's your kid, man. I mean, why would you even think like that? I'm sorry, it's your honest feeling, but there's something about it that I guess if I get to the root of it and I try to be as compassionate as possible, your child is reflecting your own lack of maturity. He's playing out your unresolved mommy and daddy issues. Or he's got something wrong with him. Or your relationship at home, you've got some major unresolved things going on with your partner, assuming you have a mother, the mother of the child is living with you, and the kid is playing out those things. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is your kid. This is you. When you chose to have a kid, you took on the responsibility to make sure that you do whatever is in your power to give that kid the ability to, function in life. So I don't know what it is, but something's really wrong here. Even if it means that the kid needs to go see a doctor. But it's kind of challenging for me to read this, that you're talking about your kid this way. Unless he's an adult. Then it's a different story. Olivia Rackley question. Olivia Rackley, I want you to know that you and I have interacted before. I care, and we've spoken, and I want you to know that I care about you a lot, and I want what's best for you. And I'm going to tell you something I've probably told you before. You really need some help. I mean, you need some counseling. Anyway, the short answer to your question here, because, I guess it kind of saddens me that you would say this, but you say, what if rather than going to a much higher dimension immediately, I want to reincarnate on another planet and try mortal life there for a while? Well, the reason why I have a hard time with your question is because there's some fear in there. You feel controlled. Your assumption is you don't have any choice. That somebody's going to impose the choice on you. So my understanding is you can do whatever the hell you want. So you can decide now where you want to live, how you want to live. My personal desire for you, Olivia, is I would like for you to be willing to take a look at, your fears, and to do that in a therapeutic setting. I want you to get rid of the stubbornness that makes you want to do everything alone and your unwillingness to trust anybody. I'd like for you to get to the place where the idea of going to a higher dimension, which means more love, more safety, more self-love, more happiness, I want you to get in the place where the thought of that makes you happy, not makes you want to run away to someplace darker and denser and colder. That saddens me to see that. And what it tells me is that you really need to work through some issues, and that you're stubbornly refusing to do that. Sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I'm in a real honest place right now. Agent of the Universe, honest feeling. The holding the 3 ones does help. However, I haven't had the experience of healing any physical ailments because I still have eye problems in one eye. Okay, so I'm not saying you have to. An agent of the universe, as you know, you kind of have dualistic thinking there. So I was just giving an example. I wasn't telling you had to have that. So holding the 3 ones does help. That's the only thing that matters. If it works, don't fix it. Agent of the universe, also, I really want to cure my mental disorders, or at least gather more energy to be able to pursue my best life, because I'm bored and nothing is satisfying me anymore, not even video games. Well, I appreciate that feeling, and I wish that for you as well. Timothy Zoll, honest feeling. There was a time when I partook in audible negative self-talk in the mirror. Wow. I had to work through it, came out the other side a better person. Well, it sounds like whatever you did worked. I don't quite understand it. Does that mean you used to talk negatively to yourself? Or that you used to look yourself in the mirror and release the negative? Either way, whatever it is that you did, it sounds like it works, so I'm happy for you. All right, Agent of the Universe, nobody's asking you about kids or not. Vincent.thunderwizard.com, honest feeling, I'm learning to accept and love myself. I guess I feel shame and unworthiness. We all do. So you're not alone there. I always felt like a burden growing up, and it's very difficult to love myself and stop criticizing myself. I relate. All right. Agent of the Universe is full of opinions today. Okay, I don't see any other questions here. I'm suffering from ascension symptoms at the moment. Tired, wiped out, got a headache. Feeling raw. I feel raw after my experience yesterday. So that's it. Again, if you're new to the channel, this channel is not about listening to me talk and psychoanalyze people. My channel is about here. You go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the 90-day challenge. Again, somebody said, when people say I'm saving up to do it, I don't know why life is so tough for you that you can't afford the cost of a cup of coffee a day. I see people lining up to go to Starbucks. And I think to myself, why? They're like cars line up to go through the Starbucks window to get their Starbucks. And then they complain about not being able to afford to do the 90-day challenge. But if you want to have access to the most powerful energy system on the planet, that gives you the 3 energy system that you won't find anywhere else, which is Qigong, Qi, Kundalini, and the life force energy of the heart, the Shin, the lightning energy of the heart. This is the only place you're going to get it. You can go to courses.thunderwizard.com to see all of my books, everything else. And of course, if you want the elite energy practice, you can go to maushan.thunderwizard.com. So come the 21st, I'm on schedule for still doing a live stream where we're going to tell the universe that we're ready. I want you to meditate on it. I want you to meditate on the idea of the shift. We are going to assume that my shamanic dream was accurate, that what other people have been saying for the past, 5 or 10 years is that there's going to be a solar pulse of energy that's going to hit the earth and everything's going to shift up to the next level. We're going to make that assumption that that's a real thing, and we are going to choose to make it happen. If that is an easy thing for you to accept, my hair is off to you, because that is not an easy thing for me to accept. The idea of completely changing the world like that and having, you know, the ability to go to another dimension. If that doesn't frighten you, then you are a stronger person than me, or maybe you don't quite understand what the hell we're talking about. But I want to face that, continue to face that, and be ready and mean it. Because as I understand it, the shift will come when we're absolutely committed and ready for it to happen. So I want you to meditate on that between now and Wednesday. And then Wednesday, we will do some exercises and we'll talk about it. And Tuesday, the 21st, whenever it is. When's the 21st? Is that tomorrow? No, that's Wednesday. So Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to be ready, and at the very least, we want to, well, I'm inviting you. I want to. I want to know that I've completely faced it and I'm totally ready. I'm ready for whatever it means, and I'm signing up for it. I want in. Let's do this. And we'll do what we can to see if we can bring it into action. And between now and then, we can meditate on it and face ourselves and look at our fears and look at any unresolved issues. And I think being conscious about it is a good thing. And that's what I'm trying to say here with all of this talking. All right. That's it. Nothing else. I wish you guys all the best. I love you all. Again, if I've done or said anything that's been hurtful or offensive, I know I probably have offended a couple people. Know that it's coming from a place of trying to be as helpful as I can. And you know you can trust me. I love you so much that I don't care whether you like me or not. If what I can give you is helpful to you, I'll do it, even if it means you don't like me. But I hope you do like me, because I'm like everybody else. I want to be liked. That's it. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves.